Semicolons. So in this video I'm going to teach you how to use a semicolon and what its function is in punctuation. So two big purposes of the semicolon. The first is to connect two independent clauses that are somehow related, and the second is to separate items in a series that have a comma with them, where one item has a comma in it. So over the next couple slides you'll hopefully be able to see how to use the semicolon. So the first major purpose of the semicolon is to connect two related independent clauses. But the first thing that we need to do is figure out what is an independent clause. So I've given you a couple examples. To the right here, an independent clause is any group of words that can stand alone as a sentence. So anything that's a sentence is an independent clause. Anything that could stand on its own as a sentence is an independent clause. So the dog went for a walk. That's an independent clause. I braided my sister's hair. That's an independent clause. Every sentence that I'm saying right now is an independent clause. So independent clauses, I think, are fairly easy. But semicolons, what they do, they connect those independent clauses when those independent clauses are related. So now that we know that an independent clause is two independent clauses are what you need to use a semicolon, let's take a look at a couple examples. I said that semicolons are used to connect independent clauses that are somehow related. So these examples here, I think, do a decent job of showing that relationship. So if you look at the first example, it says, "Sorry I didn't reply sooner. I was away from my computer." You can see the semicolon there. And the semicolon there shows that there's some sort of relationship between these two. In this instance, one causes the other. The reason why I didn't reply sooner was because I was away from my computer. If we'd put a period in that instance, it would seem far choppier. So the semicolon here is an elegant way to connect these two independent clauses. In the second example, we see the quarterback missed his receiver. He had been pressured by the defense. Again, we see a cause and effect. Why did the quarterback miss his receiver? He had been pressured by the defense. That was sort of the reason there. And finally, we have the Lions are misunderstood. Deep down, they love finding ways to lose. Again, two independent clauses that are connected. If we put a period in the place of the semicolon, the sentence structure would be choppier. It would get shorter, and it would seem more juvenile. So the semicolon here connects these two independent clauses and shows that they're related to each other. So here you can see that the second purpose of the semicolon is to set off items in a list that already uses commas. But before we do this, I think we should go over what do I mean when I say a list or a series. So to the right here, you can see that you can see two basic sentences. I went to the store to buy grapes, apples, and bananas. And that's a list. That's a list of things that you bought. You bought grapes, you bought apples, and you bought bananas. 1, 2, 3. You see in the second sentence, I visited Tokyo, Paris, and London. Again, it's a list. You see 1, 2, 3. So when semicolons are going to be used is when those items in the list have commas already within them. So in these lists to the right, we use semicolons to split up the items that are in the list. So pretty much the same sentences, except each item in the list has its own thing going on that requires a comma. So I went to the store to buy grapes, which had been hand-picked, semicolon, apples, which were imported from Detroit, semicolon, and bananas. Now notice, not every item has to have a comma within the item in order to require semicolons. If one item in the entire list has one comma in it, then you use semicolons throughout. The reason for this is because if you had commas where the semicolons currently are, things would get mighty confusing and it would be unclear as to what the items were in the list. So you can take a look at the second one. I've been to Tokyo, Japan, semicolon, Paris, France, semicolon, and Ithaca, Michigan. So again, in this instance, we use semicolons instead of commas to split up the items in the list to delineate to the reader that what comes in between the semicolons is an item in the list. So just some final thoughts on the semicolon. Some people think the semicolon is pretentious and pompous and only used by the really well-educated, and to a certain degree that is true. It is used mostly by well-educated folks. However, I think it does have a useful function and purpose in the English language. I think its primary function is to show that two sentences are related, and I think in a lot of instances, if you were to put a period in its place, the flow of the paragraph or the essay would be significantly choppier. And so the semicolon eases that choppiness and makes it more elegant. And then I think in our second example, or second purpose of the semicolon, I think it's pretty clear why we use the semicolon, and we have to know what are the items in that list. And I know Kurt Vonnegut and some teachers at a certain high school might say that you maybe get one semicolon in your entire high school career, or just to avoid the semicolon at all costs. I frankly love the semicolon, think it's very useful, and use it on probably a weekly basis. So please use the semicolon. I hope this video was helpful, and best of luck to you.